I went to the hospital to care for my wife after an injury. While she slept, the head nurse slipped me a note. Don't come back. Check the camera. My hands shook. What I saw made me cry. But let me start from the beginning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Julian Moss, and I'm a 34-year-old software developer living in what most people would call a perfect suburban paradise. Wide lawns, gossipy neighbors, and those pristine white facades that hide all the rot underneath. My wife Helena runs a successful Pilates studio downtown, and our 17-year-old daughter Olivia is the star of her high school volleyball team. From the outside, we looked like the American dream incarnate. The cracks started showing about 6 months ago. Helena began working late more frequently, taking on what she called private client sessions that seemed to happen at the most inconvenient hours. She'd come home flushed and distracted, claiming she was building her business empire one wealthy client at a time. "Julian, you wouldn't understand," she'd say whenever I questioned the late nights. "You sit in that office all day writing code. I'm building something real, something tangible." I should have pressed harder, should have asked more questions. But I was buried in my own work, developing security software for a mid-sized tech company, and honestly, I enjoyed the quiet evenings at home with Olivia. Helena became increasingly paranoid about her phone. She'd take it into the bathroom when she showered, sleep with it under her pillow, and turn the screen away whenever I walked past. When I jokingly asked if she was planning a surprise party, she snapped, "Can't a woman have some privacy? God, Julian, you're becoming suffocating." The Helena I married 12 years ago would have laughed and shown me whatever silly meme she was looking at. This new Helena felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face. Then came the car accident. It wasn't serious, a fender bender in the hospital parking lot of all places. Helena had been leaving what she claimed was a consultation with a potential client who worked there. The other driver, an elderly man named Frank, was shaken but unharmed. Helena, however, hit her head on the steering wheel and needed overnight observation for a mild concussion. I rushed to the hospital after Olivia called me from school, panicked because she'd heard about the accident through the small-town gossip network that operates faster than any emergency broadcast system. "Is Mom okay?" Olivia asked when I picked her up. Her volleyball uniform was still damp with sweat from practice. "She's going to be fine, sweetheart. Just a bump on the head. You know your mother, too stubborn to let a little accident slow her down." But when we arrived at the hospital, Helena seemed different. Smaller somehow, lying in that sterile bed with her usually perfect blonde hair matted against the pillow. She was awake but groggy, and for the first time in months, she seemed genuinely happy to see me. "Julian," she whispered, reaching for my hand. "I'm so glad you're here." For a moment, I thought maybe this accident was exactly what we needed. A wake-up call, a chance to reconnect and remember why we fell in love in the first place. I sent Olivia home with my sister Karen and settled in for the night. Helena drifted in and out of sleep, and during her lucid moments, she was almost like her old self again. She apologized for being distant, blamed the stress of growing her business, and even made jokes about her hospital gown making her look like a reject from a medical drama. "When I get out of here," she said around midnight, her words slightly slurred from the pain medication, "let's plan a real date night, just you and me, no phones, no work talk, no distractions." I squeezed her hand and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. The head nurse on duty was a woman named Sandra Martinez, a 45-year-old veteran who'd seen everything the emergency department had to offer. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense attitude that probably served her well dealing with difficult patients and their families. Around 2 a.m, Sandra checked Helena's vitals while my wife slept peacefully. I was dozing in the uncomfortable chair beside the bed when Sandra gently shook my shoulder. "Mr. Moss, could I speak with you in the hallway for a moment?" I followed her out, assuming she wanted to discuss Helena's discharge procedures or medication instructions. Instead, Sandra glanced around nervously and pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm. "I'm probably overstepping," she whispered, "but I've been a nurse for 23 years, and I've seen too many good people get hurt by staying blind to the truth." Before I could ask what she meant, Sandra walked away, leaving me standing in the fluorescent-lit hallway with my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't yet understand. I unfolded the note with trembling fingers. In Sandra's neat handwriting were 6 words that would change everything. "Don't come back. Check the camera." My hands shook as I read those words again. Check the camera. What camera? And why shouldn't I come back to care for my wife? I returned to Helena's room, studying her sleeping face for any clue about what Sandra might have meant. Helena looked peaceful, almost innocent, with her makeup washed away and her defenses down. This was the woman I'd married, the mother of my daughter, my partner for over a decade, but Sandra's note burned in my pocket like a guilty secret. I waited until I was certain Helena was deeply asleep, then stepped into the hallway and pulled out my phone. That's when it hit me. The pet camera. We'd installed a motion-activated camera in our bedroom 6 months ago to keep an eye on our golden retriever, Max, who had a habit of destroying furniture when left alone. The camera connected to an app on both our phones, recording whenever it detected movement. I'd forgotten about it entirely, but Helena had been the one to suggest installing it in the first place. For Max's separation anxiety, she'd said, we need to understand his triggers. Now, sitting in a hospital corridor at 2:30 in the morning, I opened the app with fingers that refused to stay steady. The live feed showed our empty bedroom, Max curled up on his bed in the corner, everything exactly as it should be, but the app also stored motion-triggered recordings from the past week. I scrolled through the timestamps, seeing the usual footage of Max wandering around, Helena getting dressed for work, myself grabbing clothes from the closet. Normal, boring domestic life. Then I saw an entry from earlier that evening, timestamped at 11:47 p.m., more than 2 hours after Helena's accident, while she was supposed to be unconscious in her hospital bed. My heart hammered against my ribs as I tapped the recording. The video showed our bedroom door opening. A man entered. Tall, athletic build, moving with the confidence of someone who belonged there. It took me a moment to recognize him because seeing Leo Brennan in my bedroom, going through my belongings, was so far outside the realm of possibility that my brain struggled to process it. Leo was Helena's best friend from college, a failed entrepreneur who'd moved to our town 6 months ago after his latest business venture collapsed. He was charming in that effortless way that some people possess, always ready with a joke or a compliment. Helena had been thrilled when he relocated here. "It'll be like old times," she'd gushed. "Leo always knows how to make everything more fun." In the video, Leo moved systematically through our bedroom. He opened my dresser drawers, examined my watch collection, and rifled through the papers on Helena's vanity. But this wasn't a random burglary. He knew exactly where to look, moving with the familiarity of someone who'd been here before, many times before. I watched in horrified fascination as Leo packed my expensive watches, including the Rolex Helena had given me for our 10th anniversary, into a leather suitcase. He also took documents from our home office, including what looked like my laptop and several file folders. But the worst part, the detail that made my hands shake so violently I nearly dropped the phone, was how comfortable he looked. This wasn't a desperate thief grabbing whatever he could find. This was someone who felt entitled to be there, who moved through my home like it was his own. The recording ended with Leo leaving through the front door, suitcase in hand, pausing only to reset the alarm system. He knew our security code. I sat in that hospital hallway, staring at my phone screen as 12 years of marriage crumbled around me. Helena's late-night sessions, her paranoia about her phone, her sudden coldness, it all made terrible, perfect sense now. My wife was having an affair with Leo, and together they were systematically robbing me. The betrayal hit me in waves. First came the gut punch of realizing Helena had been lying to me for months. Then the humiliation of understanding that Leo had been in my home, probably in my bed, while I worked late in my office downstairs. Finally came the rage, cold, calculating fury at being played for such a complete fool. I looked through the doorway at Helena, still sleeping peacefully in her hospital bed. She looked so innocent, so vulnerable. But she'd orchestrated this entire thing. The consultation at the hospital was probably a meeting with Leo. The accident was just bad timing. Or maybe good timing, depending on your perspective. While I rushed to her bedside playing the devoted husband, her partner was looting our home. Sandra's note suddenly made perfect sense. She must have seen Leo visiting Helena during the night shift, probably multiple times. Maybe other nurses had seen him too. In a small hospital, gossip traveled fast, and Sandra had taken pity on the clueless husband. I took a screenshot of the video, saved the file to my cloud storage, and began planning my next move. Helena and Leo thought they were so clever, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated the man they were trying to destroy. I'm a software developer. I understand systems, patterns, and logic. And right now, the logical thing to do was gather evidence and protect myself before this got any worse. But first, I needed to know exactly how bad it was. I scrolled through more camera recordings, going back weeks. What I found made me physically sick. Leo had been in our house dozens of times, always when I was at work. Sometimes he stayed for hours. In several recordings, I could see Helena leading him toward the bed before they moved out of the camera's range. They weren't just stealing my possessions, they were stealing my entire life. I spent the rest of the night in that hospital chair, watching Helena sleep while my mind raced through possibilities. By dawn, I had a plan. The first step was gathering more evidence. I accessed our home security system remotely and downloaded every recording of Leo's visits. The pattern was clear. He came over every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, always staying for 2 to 3 hours. Helena's private client sessions perfectly aligned with his visits. Next, I checked our financial accounts. Helena had access to our joint checking and savings, but I'd kept my investment accounts separate. Good thing, because she'd been steadily draining our joint funds for months. Small withdrawals, nothing that would trigger alerts, but they added up to nearly $15,000. I also discovered that Helena had applied for a credit card in my name 3 weeks ago. The card had been delivered to a P.O. box I didn't know existed, and someone had already run up $8,000 in charges. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry purchases. Leo was living well on my dime. But I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I called my office and took a personal day, then drove home while Helena was still sleeping off her concussion. I needed to see what else they'd taken, and I wanted to set a trap. Our house felt different now, contaminated by the knowledge of what had happened here. I walked through each room, cataloging what was missing. Besides my watches, Leo had taken my iPad, several pieces of Helena's jewelry that had been gifts from me, and most importantly, documents related to my work projects. That last detail sent a chill down my spine. I developed security software for financial institutions. The documents Leo stole contained proprietary algorithms and client information that would be worth millions to the right buyer. This wasn't just adultery and petty theft, it was corporate espionage. I set up additional cameras throughout the house, hidden in places Helena and Leo would never think to look. Then I called my company's security team and reported the stolen documents, but I didn't mention Helena's involvement, not yet. We need to assume the worst, I told Marcus Webb, our head of security. Change all access codes, rotate client passwords, and put a freeze on the Meridian Bank project until we know what was compromised. Marcus was a former FBI agent who took security breaches personally. Julian, if someone targeted you specifically for those documents, this could be bigger than simple theft. We might need to involve federal authorities. Let's see what they do with the information first, I said. I have some ideas about who might be responsible. That afternoon, I drove back to the hospital. Helena was awake and much more alert, chatting with a different nurse about her discharge procedures. When she saw me, her face lit up with what looked like genuine relief. "Julian, I was worried you'd gone home to sleep. You look exhausted." I kissed her forehead, marveling at how easily she could lie to my face. "I wanted to make sure you were okay. How are you feeling?" "Much better. Dr. Patterson says I can go home this afternoon as long as someone stays with me tonight." She squeezed my hand. "I know I've been difficult lately. This accident made me realize what's really important." "What's really important?" I asked, curious to hear how she'd spin this. "Us. Our family. I've been so focused on building my business that I forgot about building our relationship." She looked down at our joined hands. "I want to do better, Julian. I want to be the wife you deserve." The performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen the camera footage, I would have believed every word. Helena had always been good at reading people, understanding what they wanted to hear. It's what made her such a successful Pilates instructor. She could motivate clients by telling them exactly what they needed to believe about themselves. "I'd like that," I said, playing my part. "Maybe we could start with a clean slate." "Yes," she said eagerly. "A completely fresh start." I helped Helena with her discharge paperwork and drove her home, listening to her chatter about her plans for the studio and her ideas for us to reconnect. She seemed genuinely excited about the future, which made her betrayal even more surreal. "I was thinking," she said as we pulled into our driveway, "maybe we could take a long weekend somewhere. Just the two of us. Olivia could stay with your sister." "That sounds perfect," I agreed. "But let's make sure you're fully recovered first." That evening, I cooked Helena's favorite dinner, and we watched a movie together on the couch. She fell asleep with her head on my shoulder, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself that this could work. Maybe the affair was over. Maybe Leo stealing from us was his idea, not hers. Maybe we really could start fresh. Then Helena's phone buzzed with a text message. The screen was face up on the coffee table, and I could see the preview. "Leo, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Miss you already." The message was sent 20 minutes ago. While Helena was cuddled against me, playing the devoted wife, she was planning her next rendezvous with her lover. I carefully extracted myself from under Helena and carried her to bed, making sure she was comfortable before returning downstairs. I had work to do. I spent the night reviewing the security footage from our hidden cameras and planning my next move. Helena and Leo thought they were in control, but they were about to learn that the quiet, predictable husband they'd been betraying was far more dangerous than they'd imagined. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for them to walk into it. Helena's recovery lasted exactly 1 day. By Thursday afternoon, she was feeling well enough to return to her private client sessions. She kissed me goodbye at noon, promising to take it easy and be home by 6 for a quiet dinner. Dr. Patterson said light exercise might actually help with the lingering headaches, she explained, and this client has been so patient about rescheduling. I watched from my office window as she drove away, then immediately checked the hidden cameras I'd installed. At 12:47 p.m., Leo's silver BMW pulled into our driveway. This time, I was ready. I'd taken another personal day and positioned myself at the coffee shop across from our neighborhood with a clear view of our street. When I saw Leo arrive, I waited exactly 30 minutes before calling the police. I'd like to report a burglary in progress, I told the dispatcher, making sure my voice sounded appropriately panicked. I'm at work, but my security system is showing movement in my house. There shouldn't be anyone there. Are you certain it's not a family member, sir? My wife is at her physical therapy appointment, and my daughter is at school. Someone broke into my house. I gave them our address and hung up, then drove home as quickly as legally possible. I wanted to arrive just as the police were discovering Leo in my bedroom. The timing worked perfectly. I pulled up to see 2 patrol cars in my driveway and Officer Janet Rodriguez talking to a very flustered Leo on my front porch. Helena stood beside him in her workout clothes, gesticulating wildly as she tried to explain the situation. "Julian," Helena called out when she saw me. "Thank God you're here. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." I parked and approached the group, doing my best to look confused and concerned. "What's going on? I got a call that there was a break-in?" Officer Rodriguez consulted her notepad. "Mr. Moss, we responded to your burglary call and found these 2 individuals in your home. The woman claims to be your wife, but we'll need you to verify that." "Yes, that's Helena, my wife," I confirmed. "But what are you doing here?" I asked Helena directly. "I thought you had physical therapy." Helena's face flushed. The appointment was canceled at the last minute. Leo offered to drive me home since I'm still not supposed to drive long distances. "And you needed to go into our bedroom because—" Leo stepped forward with his most charming smile. "Actually, Julian, Helena asked me to help move some furniture. She wanted to surprise you by rearranging the bedroom while she's recovering. You know how she gets when she has a project in mind." It was a decent lie, delivered with confidence, but Officer Rodriguez wasn't buying it. "Sir," she said to me, "we found Mr. Brennan packing items into this suitcase." She gestured to the leather bag I'd seen in the camera footage, including what appear to be expensive watches and electronic devices. "Can you verify whether these items belong to you?" I opened the suitcase and made a show of examining the contents. My Rolex, my iPad, several pieces of Helena's jewelry, and the work documents Leo had stolen earlier. "These are definitely mine," I said slowly. "But I don't understand why Leo would be packing them." Helena jumped in quickly. "I asked him to move them to the guest room while we rearrange. Julian, you know how clumsy I am right after a concussion? I didn't want to risk dropping your expensive things." "Mrs. Moss," Officer Rodriguez said patiently, "your husband reported this as a burglary. He clearly wasn't aware of any furniture rearranging project." The lies were unraveling faster than Helena could spin them. I watched her panic grow as she realized the police weren't just going to accept her explanation and leave. "There's been a miscommunication," Helena said desperately. "Julian, you remember. I mentioned wanting to redecorate while I'm off work. You said it was fine." I let the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. "Helena, we never discussed redecorating. And even if we had, why would Leo be packing my personal belongings into a suitcase?" Leo's charm finally cracked. "Look, this is obviously a misunderstanding between family. Can't we just sort this out privately?" "Mr. Brennan," Officer Rodriguez said, "do you live at this address?" "No, but do you have written permission from Mr. Moss to remove his property from the premises?" "Well, no, but Helena said, then I'm afraid we have a problem." I pulled out my phone and showed Officer Rodriguez the security footage from our pet camera. "I think you should see this. It shows Leo in our bedroom last night taking these same items while Helena was in the hospital." Helena's face went white. "Julian, what are you doing?" "I'm protecting myself," I said quietly. "And our daughter. And our marriage, if that's even possible anymore." Officer Rodriguez watched the video footage with growing interest. "Mr. Moss, this appears to show Mr. Brennan unlawfully entering your home and removing your property. Are you willing to press charges?" I looked at Helena, giving her one last chance to come clean. "Is there anything you want to tell me? Anything at all that might explain why your best friend was stealing from us?" Helena's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She looked between me and Leo, clearly calculating her options. Leo made the decision for her. "Helena, don't say anything else. We need lawyers." And that's when I knew for certain that my marriage was over. "Yes, Officer Rodriguez," I said. "I want to press charges for burglary and theft, and I want a restraining order against both of them." The next hour was a blur of paperwork, statements, and watching my wife of 12 years get handcuffed in our driveway while our neighbors gathered to watch the show. As the police car pulled away with Helena and Leo in the back seat, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, relief. The confrontation was over. Now the real work could begin. The story spread through our small town like wildfire. By Friday morning, everyone knew that Julian Moss, the successful Pilates instructor with the perfect marriage, had been arrested for conspiracy to commit burglary. The details got more salacious with each telling. Some versions had Helena and Leo running an elaborate theft ring. Others claimed they'd been planning to murder me for insurance money. I let the gossip mill do its work while I focused on damage control. First, I called Helena's sister, Jennifer, to pick up Olivia from school and explain the situation. Olivia took the news better than I'd expected. Apparently, she'd suspected something was wrong for months. "Mom's been acting weird," she told me over the phone. "And Leo gives me the creeps. He's always asking about your work and when you'll be traveling." "Why didn't you say anything?" "I tried, Dad, but you were always so busy, and I thought maybe I was just being paranoid." The guilt hit me hard. While I'd been obliviously working late, my teenage daughter had been more aware of the threat in our home than I was. Next, I met with a divorce attorney recommended by my company's legal department. Patricia Chen was a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in high-conflict divorces involving financial crimes. "Your wife made several critical mistakes," Patricia explained as she reviewed my evidence. "The security footage, the financial records, the stolen work documents, it all points to a premeditated scheme. We can file for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct." "What about the criminal charges?" "That's separate from the divorce proceedings, but it strengthens your position considerably. The district attorney is treating this as a felony case because of the value of the stolen items and the corporate espionage angle. I learned that Helena and Leo had been released on bail, but they weren't allowed to contact me or come within 500 feet of our house. Helena was staying with her sister, while Leo had apparently left town entirely. "Probably smart of him," Patricia noted. "Your company's security team has been asking some very pointed questions about his background. Turns out Mr. Brennan has a history of targeting tech workers in other cities." That evening, I sat Olivia down for a serious conversation about our future. She'd chosen to stay with me rather than her mother, a decision that both relieved and worried me. "Are you okay with all this?" I asked. "I know it's a lot to process." Olivia was quiet for a long moment, picking at her dinner. "Dad, can I tell you something? I recorded Mom on my phone last week." "What do you mean?" "She was talking to Leo in the kitchen while you were at work. I was upstairs doing homework, but I could hear them arguing about money, so I started recording." She pulled out her phone and showed me the audio file. I wasn't sure what to do with it. I listened to the recording with growing amazement. Helena and Leo were discussing their plan to steal my work documents and sell them to a competitor. They also talked about accelerating their timeline because Helena suspected I was getting suspicious. "We need to clean out the joint accounts this week," Helena said on the recording. "And Leo, you have to be more careful coming to the house. I think Mrs. Patterson saw you last Tuesday." "Your daughter recorded this?" Patricia asked when I played it for her the next day. Apparently she's been worried about the situation for weeks. She's smarter than both her parents, it seems. "This recording is incredibly valuable. It establishes premeditation and conspiracy. Combined with your security footage, we have an airtight case." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Helena's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been manipulated by Leo, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recording Olivia made proved that Helena was an active participant in planning the theft, not an innocent victim. During our one court-mandated mediation session, I saw Helena for the first time since her arrest. She looked smaller somehow, deflated. The confident woman who'd built a successful business and charmed everyone she met had been replaced by someone who couldn't make eye contact. "Julian," she said when we had a moment alone, "I never meant for it to go this far." "What did you mean for it to be, Helena? Just a little adultery? Just a small betrayal?" "I was lonely," she said quietly. "You were always working, always focused on your projects. Leo made me feel alive again. So you decided to steal from me, to sell my work to competitors, to destroy our family." That was Leo's idea. I wanted to feel important to someone. I looked at this woman I'd loved for over a decade and felt nothing but pity. You were important, Helena. You were the most important person in my world, but you threw that away for someone who was using you. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. Helena would receive a minimal settlement due to her criminal conduct, and I would retain full custody of Olivia and ownership of our house and business assets. But the most satisfying moment came when the district attorney's office called to tell me that Leo had been arrested in Nevada, trying to sell my stolen work documents to a Chinese technology firm. The FBI had been tracking him for weeks, building a case for corporate espionage and international fraud. Mr. Brennan is looking at serious federal time, the prosecutor explained, and his cooperation in other cases suggests this was part of a larger operation targeting tech workers. Helena had been a mark just as much as I had. Leo was a professional con artist who specialized in seducing lonely wives to gain access to their husband's valuable work. The only difference was that Helena had chosen to participate instead of becoming another victim. On the day our divorce was finalized, I stood outside the courthouse with Olivia and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope for the future. "So what now, Dad?" Olivia asked. "Now we build something better," I said. "Just the two of us." Helena walked past us toward the parking garage, alone and defeated. She didn't look back. I'd won by staying calm, gathering evidence, and letting the system work. Helena and Leo had destroyed themselves with their own greed and stupidity. All I'd had to do was document their crimes and get out of the way. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim.